Hi, everybody. How are you today? This is Mark Chaffardini. Thank you so much for coming back to the Go See Talk podcast experience. Let me ask you about core memories. Let me ask you about things that have stuck with you your entire life. Changes to your psyche, experiences, falling off a bike, seeing something on the big screen, hearing a massively awesome band at a concert. Well, if you have ever seen the Boondock Saints, then you know all of those things happen in the scant course of 100 minutes. Rocks your fucking world. So we are thrilled beyond belief to speak to Il Duce himself, the George Lucas of Irish vigilantism, the one, the only, Troy Duffy. Welcome to the
Oh,
show, Troy. How are things in
all
your world?
right. Thanks, Mark. That's about the best intro I've ever been given.
I'll
You
take
killed
that to
it.
the bank. Well, I'd like to raise a glass to you and say your words have stuck with me. Infinitely quotable characters. Just the way you look at life makes me think differently about cinema. Yeah, just raise a glass to you and say this is off to a swell start. So.
All right, great. I will raise my coffee glass to you. We're off to the races, bro.
Kerlink. Well, I'm gonna get nerdy for a second.
All right.
I was listening to the commentary of the Boondock Saints, and in it you said that when your dad would give you book reports during the summers, and I'd like to know just a little bit more about that. Things that anything to do with school in the summer probably sucks balls, but what did you sort of like formatively? It was a workout that helped your work ethic. So.
Yeah, it just turned me into a bookophile, I guess. I just always had my head in a book. My father was a Harvard English Lit graduate and a English teacher when we were young. So he made all of his kids read a novel a month extracurricularly. Not just, it started out during the summers, but then it just went to, the full school year. And then I just did it on my own. He just basically pounded it into us. And one of the things that he loved to do during a sort of a oral book report Sunday dinner at the end of the month, we were all supposed to be done with those books, right? Was make sure that we knew, all the tricks authors use, what foreshadowing was, what personification was. He would ask us specific questions. Why did this character do that? Why do you think? Why was this character named this? You know, and he would make sure basically we knew what good writing was, fair to middling writing and brilliant writing, and so that's how I came to just stick my head in books and really begin to kind of understand what authors do. It's like the advice I give kids today that want to do what I do is read. I mean, you want to be a writer, even if that it takes you to directing as well, whatever. But you want to be a writer, read so that you know what great writing is, you know, and what great story and great character is. Because when we read something, we don't often like look back and go, "Wow, I wonder how the author." You're just reading a great book, right? And but in being a writer, it is kind of necessary to get in there with a scalpel and go, how did this guy pull this off? Why is this so good? So that's what my father instilled in me.
Well, what did you like the best? Or I mean, if you could probably pick one element about a book beyond foreshadowing and personification, was it detail? Was it character development? Was it pace? Was there something that really spoke to you?
Yeah, character and story, because you can watch more exciting, you can read more exciting books where, maybe it's something about CIA and people are dying, but then you read a book like Siddhartha, it's just as interesting, even though none of that crazy stuff's happening. It's more of a sort of a spiritual journey into the self. It can be just as interesting. That's what always kind of, to me, separated the men from the boys when it came to authors. The story you tell almost doesn't matter. Can you make it interesting? It's what we were talking about before we got on air. I choose my friends by the people that don't bore me, which means I put up with all the things I don't like about them too, just
Mhm.
because of this one thing. When an author can pull that, when an author can pull character and story, and no matter if it's about, sort of into the wild, man against beasts and wolves, and really interesting, exciting action stuff, or going on some spiritual journey staring at a river. If the author can make them both as equally as interesting, that's That's the skill I look for. That's the skill I try to emulate.
And I think word choice, what staggers me about your work is that, you think of the Brothers' Prayer, teeming with souls. You didn't say overflowing, you didn't say brimming. You used teeming, which is very specific because it
Yeah.
actually involves humans. And so it's like, so
Mhm.
that level of like thinking definitely, like you said, separates the men from boys. But I guess, that's, I guess, if you look at creativity being not a 9 to 5, but like, when do you turn that on and when do you turn that off?
I don't know. The process of writing for me has almost been like something I feel like there's some kind of spiritual, feel like God's involved because a lot of the time it just falls right out of the sky. I'm not sitting there thinking about how I connect A to B to C, and that's just me. I don't know why it is that way. And also, it's very easy with Boondock. It's something I created, something I've been sitting with for 25 years. I mean, I think about all those questions fans ask me, right? They like, what was the relationship? How come Connor and Murphy didn't know their father? You know, where did they grow up in Ireland? All the way down to questions that you can't even really like. Why do you think this is important? Sort of like, you know, uh, how did the brothers find this illegal loft they lived in? What's the agreement with the building manager? It's like, why would you care about that? And I look back because and I think the reason is everything we've been talking about. For some reason, these fans take Connor and Murphy a lot more personally. They get the tattoos on their body. We're probably the most tattooed film of all time. They have all these questions about them. They wonder about them. And that's why they were written well and performed well. And now that we're getting into books, I get to take that even deeper and think about all those questions because I had to answer them over the last 25 years. But it's odd because when I look at the characters either in literature or film. I mean, I know I didn't have those. I wasn't like, how was Rocky's relationship with his dad? I didn't think about that when I walked out of a Rocky film. When I read Puzo's Godfather, I didn't think about those. It's like just great story. I didn't think about, how was Michael as a baby? But they they
Probably had
do.
slick back hair, but go on.
They think like that, and over the years, answering those questions in my own head put this massive ocean of story in there on Boondock. So I always thought about, yeah, now I know how the brothers were as children. I know the kind of uniqueness of the way that they were born, how their mother raised them, how she never told them anything about her father, how she becomes sort of the keeper of the secrets of the MacManus clan, how their exodus from Ireland, like everything I already had bouncing around in there due to thinking about creating it and fan questions. But the I got to be honest with you. I was terrified to write a book. I almost looked at screenplays like that's child's play. Jumping in the ring with the big dogs is like not. It'd be like a guy just picking up a guitar for the first time. Oh, Jimi Hendrix, I'm gonna be as good as him. No, you're not. It's very, very rare. You know, so yeah, I was terrified.
Well, it is. I could see it's a double-edged sword or a tightrope to walk because some things you think doesn't need an answer. Like I hate bringing this up, but like the Solo movie with Alden Ehrenreich, it's like who cares where he got his gun from? The point is
Hmm.
he has it, and just
Hmm.
story continues from there. But I do love that you are able to, whether it was inspired by fans questioning or just your own sort of kicking around your head, just the fact that, like you said, it's the Kung Fu salad the brothers learned. And these elements that you are putting in the book, learning how they could wire up a house, and their first interaction with Rocco, which was really, I think, chef's kiss for their whole like call it a walk in the park. That's a bit of a tease, but
Yeah, no spoilers, but I'll tell you what, that was one of the questions. How'd they meet Rocco?
hmm
And it's just such a small thing. It's like, why are you wondering about that?
hmm
You know?
Well, but it does let you have some fun with it. If you think of the Mexican from Clifton College Jr.'s character in part two, and he's like, "This is a really cool hideout," and then Murphy got Connor goes, "Yeah, we got sticks and blankets. We can make a fort." So you have some fun in it. It doesn't have to be super serious, and I think that's the line you toe is that
Mhm.
when you can have your laughs, or as they say, the jokes are funny, but the bullets are real, you
Mhm.
do get to really unload in both the violence and the humor, and that's memorable.
Dude, yeah, that's a good. Oof, I'm stealing that one.
I'll send the recording to you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's all like that. That's what I try to do with the book. I mean, almost like if the humor of Boondock, the kind of excitement, and we added new elements, but all the things that I think fans loved about Boondock, I took to the next level. Just even like with one-liners, there was a lot of one-liners and quotables in the movies. But in the book, there's just dozens and dozens, as we roll along. But you can also like go to deeper, just like a way more personal journey. The idea of the simple idea of being able to say what characters are thinking is almost why every book is almost always better than the movie. It's almost always better than the movie. As a matter of fact, I can't really think of one that isn't. I think Game of Thrones comes close. Um, but I'd still have to give it to the book series. That again, this is all kind of why it was so intimidating to get into that process, but why I was so happy once I did and got the final outcome because it basically kicks everything in Boondock that you loved up to the next level and gives you a whole bunch of a new smorgasbord of food to eat.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'll be absolutely honest with you. I got your 608-page behemoth titled Blood Origins Volume 1, which is foretelling there'll be more. But just the idea that like there's so much denseness in just the first quarter. I stopped at the meeting the Rock part,
Yeah.
Rocco, not the Rock. Um, but I love the idea where like he gets to show his charisma and you know uh, there's a reason he got the name and whether he likes it or not. It's all really great stuff. But it shows that there's a side of people that you don't know because if you look at a box, right? It's got six sides, right? And so like you're studying on a screen, what you put up on your screen is a two-dimensional representation of stuff that live in your head. And now you're showing people all sides, and it's fascinating, especially if you love it, which again I do. So.
Yeah, it was the opportunity to basically go deeper with all the characters that were established and bring on new ones and go deep with them as you kind of journey a little bit forward. If you've gotten to Rocco, yeah, you're about a quarter of the way through, but now you're going to see that the bad guys when they emerge were doing the same thing. You know, we're going deep into kind of almost their past and what made them this way. To me, those have always been like. Have you ever seen the movie where for some reason, we love the bad guy? And it's almost always because he comes this close to convincing you. At first you're like, what an evil bastard. He needs to die. But then he kind of shows his philosophy and you're like, he's kind of got a point. You
Mm.
know, I wanted to make the bad guy, give the bad guys that aspect of you at least being a little more understanding of how they were the way they were. Yes, they need to go. But I love creating and playing in that gray area with that because, our major themes are obviously God versus man, good versus evil, truth and justice, brotherhood. But we're adding other themes now to this. For instance, blood and legacy, family legacy, right? They're on a clandestine search for their father. That's why they came to Boston to find him or what happened to him. And it becomes a very, very dark thing with strange clues coming up. And this adds to this whole, I mean, something like playing with family legacy allows us to boost all the other things. Just imagine, like we know this from the movies, right? We know Connor and Murphy never knew their dad. First thing they do is get in a shootout with him, right? What happens when the brothers find out that they followed in their father's bloody footsteps after never knowing the man? They basically did the same thing he did. I mean, that's God v man right there, because one of them might be like, you think that's a coincidence? What's up with Are we choosing to do this or were we chosen? You know? And the other one might be like, it's totally at least plausible. He was an illegal immigrant in a violent city, just like us. It was even worse back then. Mafia was bigger back then. The God v man clash can come together in ways and be brought up in scenarios that you would just never expect it to as well. So I'm having so much fun playing with these themes, adding new ones, and boosting this whole story so that I almost love like there's entire chapters the brothers don't appear in. And my objective was to make them just as interesting as all the other ones. Like you're not really missing them. We want to go on these journeys and find out more about the stories of these people that are going to be taking real part and real estate in this because this is a book series I feel like I can write for a long time, man. This is like probably 1 through 10 right now already just in my head. So I want to keep on doing this because wow, I mean, it's one of those things that once you're scared of it your whole life, then you do it. And it's kind of smooth sailing. You're like, yeah. It's like people in your life and your own that little monster in your head. You can't do it. And there's all these disadvantages. Ever you think you can do this, you think you can do that, you can't. All your friends going, don't do it, bro. Don't take the risk. Go do something safe. Your mom and dad, but there's still that one little voice going, just do it. Doesn't matter. Everything's against it, do it anyway. And it's not crazy. It's God in my world. That's God going, this is what I've given you, so get to it.
Well, that also lets you live without regrets because, I love the phrase, make it real, then make it good. Because, like you're saying, if you are a little scared to put it out there, then you're just going to get in this tail, circle in your tail, like, should I or shouldn't I? And then you missed your window. And it's also, I think, if you do too much, and I'm going to bring up an IP property that rhymes with Isney and R Wars, but like if you throw so much shit at people,
Mhm.
they're going to be batting it away. You're going to have fatigue and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So things need time to be crafted. Things need to be, reverently tied and tethered together. And I think that this is, beyond a comic book, which or whatever. But I think the idea of going a novelization is a brilliant way for the reasons you mentioned.
Yeah, it feels new too. That's one thing I think. I mean, obviously, I wrote the book for crime thriller readers. They don't have you don't have to know Boondock Saints to enjoy the book, but it's basically a love letter to the fans, and to the point where I put like a secret Da Vinci Code in there, the Duffy Code. It's in there. Fans are going to read it and be like, oh, you know, they're going to find those little clues. But yeah, I guess to me, one of the things like you're describing that throwing too much at people and stuff. I mean, obviously, Boondock. We've spent 25 years. They've gotten 2 movies. We've been pretty frugal with how much we've thrown at our audience. But this, I thought that maybe because I did the audio book which I narrated is almost 22 hours, right? And like you got the big tome there. It's only 22 hours. So this fan base that has had a collective maybe 4 hours of 2 movies in 25 years is suddenly going to get a ton of Boondock dropped on their heads. I'm dying to see what they have to say about it, but I did have that worry. I was like, is this too much too fast? Because when I was writing it, like you got these literary guys telling you, hey, you wanted about 350 pages and if you keep it to this length. And I was like, I'm writing this until this first part of the series stories is concluded because I know exactly where I want to start Boondock Volume 2. And that just happened to be about double the size that they wanted it. For instance, an audio book is usually between 6 and 9 hours on the long end. Ours is 22, so it's well over double the size. Same price, by the way, because I was like, we got to give the fans more bang for their buck. They've been waiting, right?
With inflation and stuff,
Yeah,
just give a couple more
inflation.
breadcrumbs to us.
So yeah, so it became this thing where. I didn't worry about any of those concerns until after. I was like, oh man, this is a lot of shit. You know, I just keep wondering what they're going to say about it, man.
Well, I mean, I think you bring up a good point with something like Game of Thrones, or hell, even something like Downton Abbey that has like 16 principal players, and it's,
Yeah.
and that's even before you get to the lower levels and the hierarchies and stuff like that. So, but what is beautiful, I'm glad you did mention Rocky at first, because Rocky has, I think, some parallels to the Boondock Saints in terms of it was streamlined, it was lean and mean, and people remember it for its efficiency. But when you have in just the portions of the book that I've read, you have like three bad guys. You go from I don't like to show notes, but you know what? I was like,
Oh, go for
I
it.
just you have Quinn, you have the
Uh-huh.
Beast, and then you get to Bronco, and then you get to, and that's even before you get to really into America, and then you start dealing with Joey Bevo and the
Mm.
Bruglioni, and it's like, geez, like, but I think that what is great about chapters is it's almost like episodic television. You can
Yeah.
process things better because they are in sort of little bite-sized things that do lead to another. Where I think if it's a 3 hour movie, you might get bored in a way or just overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think breaking books up into chapters is really simple. It's funny because basically the template. I wanted to do a t television series on Boondock Forever, which is pretty much the same as the book. I mean, we're going to start them out in Ireland. They steal across the Canadian border into the U.S. and live as illegal immigrants in Boston, and get sucked into the shadowy world of vigilantism. And we get to show how that happens because nobody just comes here and does that. And just, oh, we're going to kill bad guys now. There's a whole way that there's a whole big story there, which was left out of the films, which I feel like kind of fueled the book, right? But the idea of chapters is you get a beginning, middle, and an end, and it's almost like shifting gears, you know?
Mm,
And
yeah.
the chapter breaks are really important to me, right? Because you're going to find chapters that are just like a few pages as you go forward. And it's because that was the beginning and middle and end. And sometimes they'll be like I was looking at listening to the audiobook the other day because we're yanking some stuff out of it to make this kind of trailer. And yeah, some chapters are like 30, 35 minutes, and there's a few that are like 7. And it's because I said all I needed to say about that particular story, you know? And what I try to do is make sure that each chapter encapsulates those moments and that particular story that I need in order to get to the next step in an exciting way, right? Like, have you ever like we've all seen sort of cookie cutter TV and read cookie cutter book, right? Where I guess if I was to say the philosophy I follow, I don't like just connecting A to B to C in a dot to dot fashion. I like to get more than one thing out of a written scene, out of a chapter, and have it not be so dot to dot, you know? And in doing that, we'll go right back to where we started. Your best authors, the authors I loved growing up, and the authors I read all the time, they get more than just let's connect this to that. Let's do a quick flashback here to bring everybody up to speed. And then it just I hate that type of stuff. It seems lazy to me. So writing in a chapter type format, and each one of those chapters is a message. I mean, if you noticed, I put a Bible verse at the top of every chapter. Now you might not get that, a reader might not get that right away, but once he reads that chapter and goes back and reflects on that verse, he'll get it. Oh,
Hmm.
that's why he did that, because it's really the theme of the chapter here. Rereading the Bible verse is something I would love fans to do and comment on, like, because that book, the Bible, is like one of the when I first have you read the Bible?
Not cover to cover.
You have?
No, no, not cover to cover.
Well, not cover to cover. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
bits and pieces here and there.
when I was young, right, my father was like a speaker. We grew up as J-Dubs, man. We were Jehovah's Witnesses when I was real young. And my father quit all religion, and there was none in our house after a while. But he got to speaking levels, and he would go take us through Bible study. And the first thing I noticed about it was like you could say, "Hey." don't kill anybody. Or you can say, thou shalt not kill, right? The words seemed magical to me, much more powerful. And I had no idea why. I was just a kid, right? And growing up and looking at the sort of allegorical stories of the Bible, almost every kind of human thing is in there. And it's said in such poetic ways. It's like even if you're non-religious, it just I don't know. It has some different effect on people. So in using, kind of Catholic imagery and ritual in the films, which people just freaking love, the crosses and the prayer. And I mean, that's half the tattoos right there, you know? And then getting into it in the book in a deeper way, where I'm actually quoting Bible verse that's going to be the theme of this chapter that you're about to read, these types of things are again those tricks or um, formulas that I've seen great writers, and I'm just emulating them, allow suck the reader in a lot more, bring them a
Hmm.
lot closer, make it a lot more impactful and personal for them.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I was reading Hugh Laurie's The Gun Seller, and he did something similar to what you said, where the top of his chapter were a combination of song lyrics or proverb things
Oh
like
yeah.
that. But I was reading your book, and I was like, okay, well, 45 chapters means that you have a different idea and a theme per each. And so that was a question I was going to ask is like, how much deep diving did you have to do to be able to tie the two together and be like, yeah, this needs Ezekiel, this needs First Corinthians.
There's almost there's websites now. You
Okay.
just put a Bible verse on this, and it'll
Ah,
give you a
okay.
10th. And you obviously have to go through them because nothing's really perfect all the time. You actually can find an almost perfect thing on the websites that's one to one. Once you identify the theme of your chapter, right?
Hmm.
It may go crazy, violent, and crazy shit happens, but then really the theme's friendship.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
or really the theme is um, adding a new person to your group that makes you stronger, you know? As that was like when I think the Bible verse to Rocco has to do with how a three-thread cord is much harder to break.
Hmm.
This is like when the brothers added that third guy, and a bit of a spoiler, but Rocco's the guy that basically brings that question to the brother, essentially a just when the brothers don't need it, because these are hardworking, street level, poor guys, sending money back home to their mom. They're good boys, and then a wrecking ball of drama slams into their life and changes everything. And Rocco's the one that brings that wrecking ball in. So it, to me, almost always doing things zigging when everybody expects you to zag. Like this one fan would introduce his friends to the movie one at a time, and he would stop the movie every couple of minutes and go, "What's going to happen next?" And they were never right,
Really?
never
Okay.
right, because Boondock was completely unpredictable. And that I didn't even mean to do that. It's just kind of the way it turned out. I was like, let's just do something interesting and new.
Hmm.
I wasn't like, let's make a completely unpredictable film. Um, and it's the way I'm able to do that in the book is in a much deeper way, right?
Hmm.
So there will be those moments. I mean, is that what makes a page turner? Because I've read books that I'm super interested in, I love, but I can put it down. I can go do something for a couple of days and come back to it. Then I've read ones where I'm taking it on the shitter with me. I can't, I can't let this thing go, right? And even if I have to go do stuff, I got to go to the gym. I do it as quickly as I can and get back to it. So the page turner interest is kind of what I was going for, and that's one of the ways. That's one of the ways that I think good authors make a true page turner. That you do something unpredictable, so the reader is just surprised all the time. Like when you read when they did meet Rocco, all right? That was like a question I got from the fans, you know? So I knew I had to kill that, and it almost the idea that it was kind of random, you know, and, and Rocco's just having the worst day ever and how that all went. When I got done writing that, I was like, can't wait to see what they have to say. It's like I'm hoping, boom, question answered. Asked and answered, Your Honor.
Well, it is remarkable too when I'm gonna do that actually. The next little get together I have, anyone who hasn't seen the first one, I'll do that. Tell me what happens next. But it is charming though because like you said, that whole sequence, nothing went according to plan. Nothing was predictable. It's like, yeah, we do think you're, boo with the thumbs down, and it ends how it ends is just not expected. But what I find most remarkable is your choice of words. Things like and like how you envision things, like having a tattoo that actually says "ugly stick," and just
Yeah.
what that puts in your mind, what that's used for. The idea of having like a crystal clear lake, between Canada and America, and just like what that conjures. But then also you have, like how whether you go too deep or not. The entire Gino backstory is like a flashback, and it's what's happening beat by beat, as opposed to, well, then Gino was thinking this, and it got all philosophical. You kept it swift. So I think that combination of the right word choice, the right pacing, and just zigging when people think you're going to zag is a nice little
Yeah,
trifecta.
that's an interesting thing because Gino's story, I could have, in a few sentences, I could have tried to describe the type of sort of gangster with a heart of gold type thing, right? But then when you go into a backstory like that, it's almost like, yeah, it takes longer, but now you see it. It's a difference between being told something and seeing something.
Nice.
Once we see Gino do that back in the day, you know a lot more about that character. And there's upcoming things with him too, having to do with his time in prison and how that all worked out. And this is a way, again, it's it's fun talking to you, Mark, because I very rarely get to talk with somebody that understands literature like you. You're now like this is the first time I'm talking about some of these topics. You're good at kind of drilling down on this. But when I think about that, it's not just simply providing background for a character. It's providing the right type of background. From that story with Gino, what are the things you get out of it? You get, all right, yeah, he's a gangster. You get that he's super smart. You get that he is he fought in the middle of a nightmare, you know. He's extremely clever. You get that there's some home family to him, the particular restaurant he goes into. You get all these things from him, but by seeing what he does and knowing how he's thinking and how he solves problems. At the end of that chapter, now you're kind of dying to meet this guy because that's a Rocco flashback. He's like, you guys collected from this yoga student. That's Gino DePrados. We don't know each other. Goodbye. Right? And then you hear what a kind of a badass he is, but you also see a lot of other things about him. And we really haven't introduced him yet. You're going to meet Gino after that, right? And by then you're going to know who he is because you've seen this little boop, flashback. I mean, we've seen Gino. We know he's looking for something, but we don't know him yet. That's when you begin to know him by somebody else's memory, by Rocco's memory. And that's going to have like when you get to sort of the end of the book, and I hope you do. I hope we can talk again actually after you've read. Um, take Gino's take each character, but take Gino's pathway, his story arc through the entire book, and understand. I want to talk about how well I pulled it off or not, right? Because You can do an A to B to C in perfect order, introduction, arc of a character, finale. Or you can skip around a lot and look at not just what happens in this person's life to the end of it, but what are the meaningful points that built him as a human being so that when he concludes, we're not just watching the end of a tale, we're watching the end of a person, somebody we actually know, therefore more impactful. So I try to do that. I'd love to talk to you about that again, what you've done reading, man. And I would highly recommend the audio book too, because it's turning out to be a bit of a different experience. Right now, there's only two or three guys that have heard it. This is some pretty fresh stuff, you know. And it was funny too because I had one of my buddies, Nick Hall. He does this fan site called Boondock Saints Legion on Facebook, and he's an Irishman. He lives in Ireland in Killarney, and we're great friends. He's a terrific drinking mate. But I gave him the audio book, and he's like, look, I don't listen to audiobooks, and I'm a little bit, I don't think I like them too much, and it's gonna take me a while to get trained in the. And he listened to it and loved it. But at first, I was going, "Oh my God, I literally picked the worst guy possible to listen to this." But he really, really got on it and loved it. And we're going to be doing things with like sort of fan reviews. We've gotten a bunch of kids on his website. The Audible gives you a bunch of free copies, and they gotta like put in a code, and they get it early so they can start to review it. But I'm dying to see what they have to say. This is all fresh, man. Like you might be like the third guy that's actually read any significant portion of this, you know?
Well, thanks for letting me into the fold. I will. We can pencil definitely a chapter capper at the end of this, and part two, so to speak. But falling in love with characters is one thing. Falling in love with their style and their lyricism, whether it's inspired like David Del Rocco or just it's fabricated. Two questions for you. Who was sort of the toughest nut to crack for you? And then do you have a favorite baby from your blood origins?
In terms of characters,
Correct.
yeah, the brothers will always be my favorite. And one of the and it's for an odd reason. It's because they I based those characters very loosely upon me and my own brother Taylor's characters, just exaggerated the crap out of them, made them Irish. Um, I love them because they provide an opportunity for an author. The brothers are almost the opposites on every issue. They disagree on everything. Do you have brothers, Mark?
I do. I have a 6 year younger brother, and I brought him into the Boondock fold,
Mm.
and it similarly changed his life. We bought the
That's
pea
good.
coats. He got me a he got me a lighter with a cross on it, and he wrote the inscription of the brother's prayer on it. So
Well,
I do have a brother, but we disagree about everything. So it's well
yeah, well,
spoken.
that allows an author, which is one of the great things about having characters like this. I get to do both sides of every issue. I get to explore both sides of every issue, you know, because they're black and white on everything, and you almost get to like almost on every single issue that's brought up, you get to pick a side. Whose side am I on? And let's just like look at the overall like an overriding thing like God v man, right? You can because we have like and this is a bit of a spoiler, one brother is more spiritual than the other. The other is like one would be like a believer, and one would be like most of the rest of us, struggles with his faith, doesn't know if it's all real, right? Reads stuff in the Bible, but like, did he actually do that? Came back to life. Did that actually happen? So like most of us, basically. And when they clash like that on everything, you almost get this perfect separation that has always existed in the fan base. There's two types of Boondock fans, I believe. Like there's what I call the believers and the regulars. The regulars are like movie rant. This is an awesome romp. They're just two badass Irish vigilantes going along with their moral code. Nothing they do is some kind of miracle, right? The other side of the believers who believe that there's another thing here, a spiritual element, that they were chosen, to do this somehow and that God is involved. And both sides can argue till the cows come home, but I give both sides enough ammunition to make their point. Like if you want to believe that, you can. We never show, the hand of God coming down and making them fly off a building. There's no there's no superpowers here. These are regular guys, but straight up miraculous stuff happens. A guy pulling a toilet out of the floor and jumping off a 5-story building with it. He lands on one assailant, the toilet lands on the other. The guys are just about to kill his brother. That is miraculous, but it's also possible. There's no clear superpower or magic involved in that. That's possible. I push the bounds on it for sure, but it's all possible. And as long as I keep it like that, I keep everything just short of superpowers and replace them with the spiritual, with God, the specter of God, then we can keep those two at the water cooler in the office every day, those two factions arguing till the cows come home, and they're both right.
Hmm.
Mm.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because that is exactly what I was thinking. The toilet scene and the rooftop scene, it all happened before they were baptized. So you could say that they already had divine intervention or superpower, or just they were so brotherly, taken for looking out for each other's protection, which you kind of go into in Blood Origins, that this is possible. And or
Well,
like
that's what I'm
Smecker
talking
said,
about. Remember
they're
earlier?
angels.
Yeah. And do you remember when I was talking about earlier, we got more out of a scene than just one thing?
Hmm.
All right, here's what you get out of toilet scene. Their love for each other will not be beaten. Whatever the situation is, the brothers will chew through a brick wall to protect each other. That doesn't have much to do with spirituality or luck. Then you get, okay, is God involved? Because that was freaking miraculous. Then you get, wait a minute. It's perfectly, I know physics. You can do this, you know? So you get all these things. And then, of course, it goes out into the other story. Like you said, they're angels.
Hmm.
Or they're just wait a minute, they're just two regular guys. Now it's all those things are out there. They just drag a fucking potato on a string.
And say thanks for
These
coming
Irish
out.
idiots. So you get so much out of it. And it's like when you create multiple things in a scene that have multiple almost questions you're asked or things you're shown, that too goes out into the story, and the other characters have to deal with it. Isn't that great?
Hmm.
Now we get to almost show every each of the interpretations. The reader is going to have his own, but he's going to see a character reflect his own thoughts and go, that's it. That's the guy I'm following. That's the guy I like more now.
Hmm. Well, as I said at the beginning of this is you're the George Lucas of the Irish vigilantism. Have you ever looked back and go like, Connor and Murphy, what was I thinking? Why wasn't it Larry and Barry? And they could be like Tweedledee and Tweedledummer. Like, have you ever had second thoughts about like fans love it too much to change it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Cemented in stone.
Yeah, I think there was wow, some things I stuck to my guns on that I'm so happy that I did. For instance, I was a first-time director, and my top three leads were no names, right? Norm, Sean, and Rocco. That was a very hard thing to stick to my guns on because Hollywood's like, oh, you got this script, and all these celebrity actors want to do it. That's what you do on your first film, Troy. And I was like, my pushback on that was, wait a minute, you guys are supposed to find new talent too, foster. You're supposed to make the next movie stars. Isn't that part of it too? So I stuck to that, and I'm so glad I did because, I mean, you're right. What fan could imagine any other actors playing those three roles, the brothers and Rocco, right? But yeah, it was a very hard thing to stick to. Another thing was the name of the movie. I remember my producers were like, nobody gets it. What is that? You know? And they presented me like a bunch of other potential names, and I stuck to my guns on that too, because I was like, look, this is one thing that, after you watch the movie, you get it. Nobody's gonna know what a Boondock Saint is going in, but they will when they come out. These are these are spiritual, hard characters from another land that come here. They're from the boondocks and they come here and kind of show us what we're supposed to be. I mean, America is the birthplace of outlaws and vigilantes and people that stand up for justice. So they're going to get it. They're going to, and perhaps each one of them will have their own interpretation of what that title means. But I'm glad I stuck to that too, because what fan could imagine it being called anything else? So sometimes it's really difficult to stick up for your kind of creative vision, your artistic vision. But I guess my advice to the young people coming up and doing this now is only do that when you are 100% sure, because there's going to be people that come in and try to make you question it. And it's okay to do that. It's okay to kind of ponder that, Is this title just a little too much is it interesting enough just on its face, even though you don't might not know what Boondock Saints means, to have them pick it up and look at it and want to see it initially, you know? So think about it, listen to your advisors, but if you are really truly feeling that, fight and stick to your guns and don't be apologetic about it either.
I like that a lot. I think that dovetails with something I heard recently, and I was asking a musician. I said, "Well, when do you take advice? What do you choose?" And they said, "Well, I'll take advice if I ask for it." And I think that that's a good distinction because if somebody just heaps upon like, "I think this should be shorter, or there should be three brothers, or whatever," it's like, "Did I ask you?" This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
this is the one
You know
I
what I
want to
do?
tell.
You know what I do? I do the same thing. I ask people for advice, but it's people whose literary opinions I trust, right? Writers that I've known for years and years. And what I do with notes, for instance, I'll complete a script. Hey, just give me your thoughts on this. Questions, comments, concerns. When I know that I have a note I should pay attention to is when it's already something that in my own head I was like, not sure if I got that one, right? Not sure if so you're gonna have doubts. Writers tend to get within the four walls of their script or book, whatever they happen to be doing, and they can just walk by a Mount Everest and not even see it sometimes, right? They can miss things, which is why I love my little quorum of friend writers that I give my scripts to and my book to, the chapters to, because these are the guys. Fresh eyes are like they're worth their weight in gold. With people that don't feel. It's like my father once said. The problem with asking someone's opinion on something is they think they have to have one. You know, it's almost like if Hawthorne, okay, if some of the greatest authors gave their first book to their buddy, and their buddy was like, "All right, let me just take," it's like their note should have been no notes. Brilliant. Oh my God, I had no idea what a genius you were. That should have been their note. And sometimes when I have something that I know is solid, I am looking for somebody to be pretty scant with it. One of the best notes I ever got was halfway through a script. I gave it to one of my buddies who I trust, and he was just like, keep going. That was his note. He wouldn't say anything. I'm like, well, how do you feel about this character? He wouldn't say anything more. Just keep going. Keep going. I'm in. Keep going. You know? And so yeah, I take your buddy's thing one step further. I choose the people that I trust. I ask them for notes, and if the notes that they're giving me uh kind of link up with something I was already worried about or squeamish about or soft on or didn't think I got, that's when I know I need to attack that.
Absolutely fair. I like that. I'm gonna take that back to my friend and be like,
All right.
guess what Troy said? Um, well, first of all, it's not often people bring up Nathaniel Hawthorne in a conversation. I mean, we happen to be talking about literary authors, but he's one of the best. But let
Yeah.
me ask you a framing question. I feel like that this story took a little liberties in time to sort of get some jokes you might have wanted to put into it. So I read this one part said this um, which you are this miraculous feast which we're eating is the last of our petty cash. And I was like, wait a second, hold on. And then I saw Ghostbusters and Home Alone and Willy Wonka. I was like, YouTube, and I was like, did you just jump this forward in time so that like how did the timing in your mind
Okay.
work?
Well, there's a reason for me wanting it to be in contemporary times. First of all, just kind of going back a mere 20 years in history, right before the internet hit, right before everybody had a cell phone. To me, that was kind of pointless, right? Because you don't get much out of that. Putting it in present day gave me a bunch of things. First off, the brothers, when they get to America, they busted their asses. They believe in the American dream. They're coming here for their slice only to see what we all see today, that the American dream is crumbling. That's a very interesting thing. That's something that draws them into the shadowy world of vigilantism, provides a much more target-rich environment. There are terrible criminals doing terrible things today that they weren't even doing 20 years ago. So the brothers being in this kind of seedy underbelly of a violent city, which also is historically American. That's why they call Boston the cradle of democracy, right? It combines all the things, and they that all the themes are in this perfect like cauldron. If you do it today and in Boston, it combines America, our founding, everything we are, all our ideals being shown back to us by the brothers, challenged one by one. Also, seedy underbelly, crime, new crime, corruption going to the highest levels. We are now in a target rich environment for the boys. Plus, they see what we see. They smell what they walk by what we do and get disgusted every day on the streets. So to me, I got a lot out of that. I got a lot out of making it present day. But a couple of the things I found out along the way, which were some fun things, were like, yeah, we played with like sort of I guess you'd call it pop culture, right? A lot, in Boondock. We poked fun, like, we did Fat Albert jokes. You look like Mushmouth. Fat,
Is everything okay, baby? Sorry.
so we did that, and that was something I loved, the fans loved, and now in a book, yeah, we get to do that a lot. And one of the ways, the new ways, is them quoting movie lines that we all know and love, that we all
Mhm.
grew up on, just in common conversation, and like they've been trying to one up each other their whole brotherly lives. So it's a great way to like, I mean, sometimes I look at it like almost like a boost button, right? Right in the middle of a scene. If it's not quite interesting enough, you can boop hit the boost button, And with the search for their father, you can hit the panic button. I mean, imagine him walking those streets 30 years earlier. Right now we're rushing blood back and forth between the arteries that connect the past and the present. The brothers walk into a pizza parlor in present day. Whoosh, that was a betting parlor back in the day, and dad walks in, does something awful, great, and terrible. And then the brothers walk out with their slice in present day, not even
Mhm.
knowing their historical connection to this place and what their dad did right there. They're following right in his footsteps. So these are ways that, in terms of that, in terms of the pulpy nature of it, that connected to other things too. Legacy connects to that. What were the things back in Dad's day that they're going to be making fun of? Maybe some shit that their dad thought about. Then McConnell Murphy are cracking on it today, almost making fun of their own father without knowing it.
Mhm.
Things like that are going to come, and things like that are almost like why I just love telling the story and feel like I could do it for the rest of my life. It's almost like God came down and was like, you know what, you've done well, son. Now you just get to be an author. You don't have to deal with producers and lawyers and actors and ask people for massive amounts of money to make your movies. You just get to do it all by yourself. But right to the fan. Thank you. Thank you. Come again.
Well, I think on that note, from what I've read, I think the most impactful little line or verbiage is something that probably envelops your mentality, your creative process. It's not just doing shit; it's getting away with the shit you do. And I think that you're sort of like building. In Egyptian times, there was a mastaba, which is like a tiered cake, and then there's a pyramid. So like you're building up towards something. It's a colossus, this whole effort, and I love to hear that there's more. I would love to talk to you more. I can't wait. Talk to Sean and Norman and Rocco and Jeff Dana. Thank you for helping complete this little pyramid that I'm building up of Boondock.
I love it. I love it. To me, guys like you that know literature, obviously, wow, you're like a kind of a powerhouse on this, man. I'm kind of blown away because I haven't discussed some of this stuff, and I wasn't even really thinking about it much. Actually, you brought some of it up, but I'd love to talk to you again once you're done with the book, man, and kind of circle back around, because I think that when one of the things I'm worried about is this fan base has suffered for so long, right? And still looking forward to that three, and there's some stuff in the works on that. Hopefully, within about a year and a half, if everything goes good, they're going to get their three. But that's as fast as it could happen. So what they have in the interim is a metric ton of boondock being dropped right on their heads. And
We'll get
I
all the baseball gloves in the world and we'll catch it.
Yeah, I mean, you and your brother and introducing it, you're sort of you are sort of the blueprint Boondock fan. That's what I remember. Norman used to talk about how Boondock was what he called the silent explosion. We didn't get a theatrical release really to speak of. We didn't get any billboards or trailers on TV. We went straight to video, right? But it became Blockbuster's highest grossing straight to video in their history. And all these fans found it. And slowly but surely, we'd see kids with the tattoos. I'd be at bars and I'd hear dudes doing a shot and shouting out lines from my movie. And Norm and Sean were getting recognized everywhere they go for the first time in their lives, right? And that's the way it happened, kind of this underground cult thing. And our fan base was just like you. It was one brother showing another, friend showing his best friend, almost like new membership in the club every time, creating a new Boondock fan. And it happened, like Norman says, this kind of silent explosion that nobody really expected. But we all sat, it was almost like we were a backstage at our own rock concert. I'm just looking at the audience going, oh my God, they really like us. you
Yeah.
know? And I'm dying what you have to say, being that kind of fan. You're almost like the perfect run-of-the-mill fan as to how they first heard about it and how they spread the word themselves. Now you're gonna go through the book. So yeah, I'd love to circle back around and see what you think about that and how that sort of affected the Boondock Saints universe.
Well, one last thing before I cut you loose. It affected my universe. One of the reasons I knew I was going to marry my wife, we were at a bar and somebody had a Boondock shirt. And I was like, "Is that a Boondock shirt?" And she just goes, "I kill your brother." And I was like, "All right, let's go to the church right now." This is anyway. She said
You'd
she didn't
be
remember it, but I was like, "I do. That's my core memory." So
You'd be shocked at the number of times I have heard stories like that are either like deep family stuff or boyfriend girlfriend, like they stayed together, and even husbands and wives. Like there was some boondock element that made them spot each other. I got to tell you this one story before we knock off, man. This is funny as hell. This guy gives me a fan emails me one day. And turns out this guy marries the girl that he loves, and the his in-laws hate him. They're super like whatever, like staunch church-going folk, and they can't stand him. And so he has to go every like Tuesday night or something to movie night at his in-laws' house. And they're watching like Anne of Green Gables and stuff, and it's driving him nuts, right? So it gets to his point to pick the movie. And without telling his wife, he puts in Boondock Saints, right? And his wife is looking at him in silence, because it's dark in the living room, and she's like, right? She's just, and he's like, and the reason he did it was so that he would never have to attend movie night again. He was going to put in the most offensive thing to mom and dad-in-law possible, so that he would never have to participate in this terrible, awful time again. And it's utter silence The cat scene happens. The old man jumps out of the seat laughing his ass off. He rewinds it like 10 times, grabs the kid. Now he's his favorite dude, and he yells at his wife. He's like, go get us a couple of beers. The whole rest of the thing, like he was now his father-in-law's favorite guy. And he's like, why have I never seen this before? It was like, you are so lucky you pulled that off.
Could have gone south real quick. Boston south. Well, hey, Troy, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, check out Boondock Saints Blood Origin Volume 1. I will continue it. Finish it by the time we get to post this. And Troy, I will catch up with you next time. It's been an absolute pleasure and a treat.
All right, no problem. Everyone, Mark is a hell of an interviewer. Go see Talk. Keep watching, man. You got some real stuff out of me, man. I wasn't planning on talking about any of that stuff, so good luck.